Today I'm going to show off starting from one of our NetSkeme products, a fictional salesman representation of a schematic, bringing that over into HyDraw CAD, cleaning it up, and then beginning to set it up to print off as a batch sheet so that you can have all the pages together as one into a PDF file to hand off to anyone else. So we'll start off here on netskeme.com. I'll just go ahead and log in. And it'll give me an alert because I had something open on here last time I was on. And it just so happens that is the fictional drawing that we have here. So on NetSkeme, we're only able to have one title block displayed at a time per drawing. So unfortunately, I won't be able to copy this over and to take over the other side of this drawing here. So in order for me to actually have both sheets to print off, I would actually need to create two separate files. And I really don't personally want to do that. I kind of like having everything all together. So as we can see here, this one's just a pretty simple dual manifold setup with a pump going to both. Salesman did try to list things into a parts list for us, but he didn't have the information to put in for every piece. So I'll be taking everything from all the items that do have their part information, and I'll be transferring that over into everything on HyDraw. So the first thing we'll do here is we're just going to go ahead and save it from here in NetSkeme. And that'll give me a quick little save file. And now I can go over to HyDraw and let's go ahead and open that up. And that'll be right here. And it'll give me a prompt because in HyDraw and Autodesk products, they really don't like it when a DWG file isn't created with Autodesk. So with NetSkeme, it doesn't really see it as one. So there we go. We have our drawing now here in AutoCAD or HyDraw. And we can begin our cleanup. So the first thing we'll do is we'll just go ahead and get rid of the title block that we have here, just to kind of help figure out what we're going to be seeing here. So while we have all of our items on display, I can go ahead and click on any of these and we can start to see that we do have some of their part information that was put in on NetSkeme. But I actually want to fill out the rest of the model data for all these parts. So since they were able to give us the model code for everything, I can actually select from library here, bring that up, and I can use our Fluid Power Tool search to sync up anything that's linked to this symbol here. And we can see that this DG file is actually on the list, so we can go ahead and add that in. And that'll fill out the rest of our information that we needed. And I can kind of just rinse and repeat that for a lot of these other items on this list. So for this one, I do know with check valves, we have quite a big list of those. So I'm actually going to go ahead and insert the model code myself. Now I'll help narrow down that list. Yeah, there it is right there. Got a pressure relief valve. And those are the items that really are kind of unique to this whole drawing. So really just those 4 pieces. So for everything else, I need to copy all that information over. So I'm actually going to use our copy command. And I can just copy all those properties from there to anything that's going to be a similar part. And I know we got them over here as well. So all those check valves are all the same. And when you try to copy everything over, you're actually going to get this pop up here for copy properties. And we can actually pick and choose which properties we're actually wanting to bring over. Since I'm actually wanting to do a full copy, I can actually select everything. Go ahead and click OK. And that'll now put all of my information for each one of these. And so we'll just do that same thing for all these others. Selecting the first and every destination symbol. Enter. And there we go. And last one. There. And so for a lot of these other parts, when we bring them in NetSkeme, everything will receive an item ID. But for this drawing, this pump and everything, these are all just going to be a little bit more generic, so I really don't want them added to our parts list. So I can actually select all these, and up at the top, I can actually say exclude from parts list. So that will remove its item ID, and I can just do that for pretty much everything on here. As for the reservoirs, I'll deal with these here in a second. There we go. So one of the other things I had noticed when we were using NetSkeme is some of the reservoir symbols actually don't have a symbol port on them like most of our symbols do in HyDraw CAD. Whereas with this, I can actually move the symbol and all of our connected lines will follow. But unfortunately with this reservoir, it doesn't have the symbol port. So if I try to move this one, the line won't come with me. So for these, I'm actually going to replace the symbol. So I can actually select this, go to our reservoirs, find the reservoir symbol that I want to replace it with. And then I can just go ahead and say replace symbol and then drag and drop. It'll bring in the new symbol for me. And then I can connect this back up. So now, if I try to move this, it should actually follow. So I'll do that again with all these. Select, place, and bring in. Select, place, and bring in. And then we can sync or hook these back up. And it looks like this one might be a little bit off from my from my snap to grid. So I'll fix that here in a minute. And one more reservoir to fix. Place symbol. Bring in. And again, the reservoirs, I also don't want those on my list, so I'll go ahead and take those off. All right. So now we got that cleaned up. The next thing I want to try to fix are the item IDs that we have for everything. So as of right now, everything is numbered incrementally. We don't have any kind of grouping to any of them, even though they're all similar items. So I do want to change the type of balloon style and change up the way that the numbering scheme is actually set on this. So I can double check my options here. We can go to our item IDs. And I actually want to have this done as a dash separator, grouping identical. And then as for the balloons, I actually want to go back to having an oval for the component types. And I think that's all the ones I really need to change on this. So I can go ahead and click OK. And then we're actually going to run from the system tab in the ribbon, the item ID command. And I can go ahead and select everything. And that'll bring up this window here, giving us the chance to actually change what number we're wanting to start these all off with, which I'm actually going to go ahead and make these be starting off with item 100. I'll go ahead and click OK. And there we go. So now everything that's starting off with number 100, counting incrementally, and any similar items are all going to start getting their dashes and their incremental copy number. So next thing I want to get on here is we're actually missing our ports. So in order to quickly get those back in here, I could either bring these all in individually by bringing in a port and dropping them into place. I think that might just take a little bit too long for us to do here. So I'm actually going to go ahead and delete that one. What we'll do instead, we're actually just going to recreate our manifold. So if I can back up the envelope, then draw this box around the whole item. And it'll automatically insert all of my ports for me instead. So all I have to do now is label each one. So since this one is my tank line, I'm actually just call this T1. And I need to choose a port size. So I'm just going to go ahead and say it's a 3/8 BSP port. Now I just need to name the rest of these. This is a pressure one, so we'll just go ahead and say P1. And then we'll have our items. I'll say A1, A2, B1, and B2. And then as to get all that information, again, we can use the copy command, select the port, and select all of our destination symbols. I think I missed this port. And there we go. And I'll do the same over here. We'll remove our original manifold and insert a new one. There we go. And since this is the second block, I'll go ahead and say that this is T2. And P2. And then we'll just continue our labeling the same way. So C1. C2. Did not take. There we go. D1. D2. Oops. And F1 and F2. All right, so that's all of our ports labeled. And we'll just get those last little pieces of information on here as well. Copy the port, paste, paste. And all of our properties. All right. So the next thing we want to do, so I'm just going to go ahead and start getting some of these symbols kind of cleaned up and oriented the right way. I see I've got a lot of my connection lines are a little messed up looking. So we'll just start by using the move command and we can start moving everything around and getting it cleaned up. Oh, and before I do so, actually, let's go ahead and turn back on our snap to grid. And I'm actually going to adjust our manifold block here first. Oops. Get that onto our grid as well. Go. And now we can start moving those symbols around. Preferably grabbing from any of the actual connection points. And that'll help us move this around nicely. We'll use the stretch command here and we'll start bringing this one down. We can actually move that port as well. And of course, we're starting to get some weird bends in here as well from me moving some parts around. And sometimes it's just better to remove a connection line and redraw it. So we can actually just select from there and bring it back into place. There we go. This one actually jumped to a different connection. So that one's one we can go ahead and delete. We'll get that put back in. So this is actually a control line. Select from there. And we're going to bring it all the way up to this point here. Then we'll actually stretch this over as well. Then we can do another delete of this line. And bring that up to the corner. And then I do see that we are missing a piece of the information on this one. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that in. And drew in a little bit weird, but we can go ahead and bring the stretch command in and fix that. So I'll just continue to move these all around and get everything all nice and cleaned up. All right. So the next thing I want to do is I'm actually going to try to get some of these symbols to actually line up themselves. So we have 4 of them here in a row. So I'm actually going to use our align symbol. And we'll just select all 4 of these symbols here. Enter. And then we're actually going to align with the first symbol. Oh, oops. Select following 3, my bad. And then align with this. And then I'll bring up this little pop-up and we can actually align these the way we want. So we're going to go ahead and align with center. And there we go. And another weird looking line here. I know how this one's actually supposed to be set up, so we can go ahead and delete those. Bring that up. And clean that all up. There we go. And let's go ahead and align the other symbols here as well. So I can align that one with this one. Say we're going to align to mid. And I'll bring that one down. Let's just go ahead and see if we can get that one to fix itself. Nope. All right, so we'll go ahead and redraw this line as well. Sometimes our auto routing can be a little bit confusing. Oops, I missed. One more time. And there we go. Now, the next thing I want to do is I actually want to, because I'm going to be printing these on 2 different sheets, I actually create a jumping reference. And I'm currently using our 2021 version. So unfortunately, when I try to click on a jumping reference, I'm going to get a little pop-up telling me that, hey, both sides of this connection line are connected. In our upcoming 2022, we're actually upgrading the jumping reference so that both ends are connected. We can actually will have the option to break the jumping line and create both references at once. So for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and we'll grab this jumping line and we can actually grab the point out, or this connection line, and we can actually, we can delete it, I guess. We'll just draw in a new one. And then we'll just create a jumping reference. And I'm just going to say this is the pressure line. It's going to be going to sheet 2. And I'm not really sure about the grid square it's going to be landing on yet. So for right now, I'm just going to say A1. And we'll have our first jumping reference. And from this end, I can do the same. Quick little line out. Jumping reference. Select the connection line. And then I can name this the same. So pressure line. This one's actually going back to sheet 1. And again, I'm not sure about the grid square, so I could just say A1 now. So we have both there. And what's nice is since they're both named the same, if I were to ever have a larger schematic where I was using a lot of jumping references, I can actually use this find jumping reference command by selecting it and then selecting on one of the end lines of a jumping reference that I do see. I'll actually be taken right over to the other. So I can kind of keep track of all the areas that I'm going to if I've got a much larger schematic that I'm working with. So the next thing I want to show off is how we would set up for a batch plot. Normally, whenever we're printing or plotting in HyDraw CAD, a lot of times we'll actually be using our normal title blocks where we can use our little insert here. And I can just say that this is a C-size sheet, and it'll bring in my title block for me, where I can fill out all the information. And here in HyDraw CAD, at least, I could copy this. Oops. could copy this entire title block and do that, and then be able to print both individually as if I were to come up to plot. Just say I wanted to do a high quality PDF, and then I could just say to the window what I'm drawing here. So I could be plotting just that first sheet. But this doesn't let me set up as a batch setup, so I can't have both sheets on the same page or same file with them counting as separate pages. So the way I really want to do this, I'm actually going to be using our paper space. So down here in the bottom, we actually have our paper space tabs for layout 1 and layout 2. Now both of them look the same, and I don't have anything really set up on them. But I did create a template earlier where I actually made a title block on the paper space. So we're bringing this one in here now. Sorry, brings up this dialog. So I can bring out the layout. And now we'll see down here, I actually have a C-size sheet layout page. So this title block is actually appearing on paper space. There's nothing in the model at all, or well, nothing in the model at all for the template. But I don't have a view, can't really see the drawing yet. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the layout tab. Up here in the upper left, we can actually choose polygon style setup for a viewport, and we can just draw in what we need. I'm going to go ahead and draw this around the area that I actually want it to display. Before I finish it off, I can just hit C to close, hit enter, and there we go. There's our viewport. So now this is actually showing us the model space on paper space. And if I want to double click into here, see the viewport that I just created gets a much darker, thicker line, and we can actually manipulate that in here. And since schematics are technically drawn 1-to-1 scale, you can actually come down here to the bottom right. We can actually say 1-to-1 scale and bring that in. And it looks a little gross right now, but that's just because I have my grid on. So I can now move this around and get that into the view of where I want it. And then to leave, I can either double click outside of the viewport or type P space to toggle back and forth between model space and paper space. So the next thing I'll do is I can actually come down here and I can actually just go ahead and give ourselves a title, fill out our block. So we can see our title here. We'll just say, I want this to be the webinar schematic. It's on a C-size sheet. I'll say the name of the company is Vest. That was drawn by me. And I don't really need to fill out everything else. But there is one thing that I want, which is sheet. And on sheet, I'm going to go ahead and say that is 1 of 2. Then we can apply and click OK. So everything will be filled out here in the bottom right. And now that I have all that information filled out, I can actually just right click on this tab now, go to move or copy, and that'll bring up this dialog where I can now select this sheet that I want to copy here, create a copy. We're actually going to say move to end instead, and go ahead and click OK. So now on our second tab, we have a complete copy of it. So now I can actually come down here, I can double click that again. This one's actually going to be 2 of 2. And then I can double click in this, and we can bring this right over top. And so I kind of want to center this one. So I'm actually going to zoom, and then I'm actually going to say object. So O for object, select everything, enter, and I'll bring that all up to the center of everything. And all I gotta do is just change my scale back, and there it is, nice and centered. So if we go back to my other drawing, see that we've got both of them now, sheet 1, sheet 2. I do have the other layouts as well. So the last thing that I'll be showing now is how we do a batch plot itself. So we're actually going to go up to the HyDraw CAD symbol in the upper left, and from print, we'll go to batch plot. Now bring up this dialog. And so I wanted to make sure that we're actually plotting this to a PDF. And I can see that we have all of our tabs down here. So we even have a model space tab, the layout, the other two layout tabs, but I only want those other last two of my ANSI sheets. So I can select this and just go ahead and say, use the minus sign to remove that. Now I want one copy of all this. And if I go ahead and click publish, I'll get my chance to save this. So I'm just going to go ahead and save that right into my downloads folder. So we'll go to Swagger, downloads. And I'll go ahead and save. And this pop-up is just so if you were constantly printing the same setup of sheets, if you can say yes to save it, but this time I'm not going to, so I'll just say no. And I'll plot in the background, and we'll just have to sit here and wait for just a few seconds. Should give us our prompt that everything's all good. Which we can check down here in the bottom right. Oh, it looks like it did load up. So I can just go ahead and double click on our PDF. And here we go. So we have we have our drawing all set up on here. The webinar schematic, sheet 1 of 1, and sheet 2 of 2. So we can actually see both of them here, side by side now. So if you had multiple sheets, whoever knows how long, what size of a schematic you may be working with, you can have all of these collated all into one document that now you can send out as a PDF. Then now that I have this, I can actually save this again. If I go back into NetSkeme, it sign me out, or try to. I can actually now go back to our home page here and open a new one. So I'm not going to save what I had there. I'll open up this current version of it we just saved. And so if I wanted to hand this back off to our salesman, now he has the updated version. Now, a couple things don't show up exactly the same way from HyDraw CAD to NetSkeme, but such as our jumping references, they don't have that box around them anymore. They're just now considered a line of text here in NetSkeme. But all of our information that we have saved is now actually on each symbol. So everything that we ever updated, it has everything on there now. But our extra details, such as flow rating and those things all that information that we get from Flow Power Tools, that doesn't come over. Now for the last part that I would really want to show that I kind of missed is bringing in like a parts list and actually getting it to display onto our sheets, which I realized I kind of forgot to do. So I actually create our parts list now. Go ahead and create that. Get our little creation of that. And there we go, our parts list. Now, from here, if I actually go into our viewport, you should be able to see it down here, but that's not really what I want because this is technically part of the model space. Go back to model space, actually select this, and then there's actually a different type of copy command that we can use, which is Control, Shift, and C, which actually lets you pick a point where you want to select this from. So we'll select the upper right corner. I can actually come back over to my first drawing, and then just a Control V to paste. I can put that right up there. And so now this is technically part of the paper space drawing. So if I actually wanted to come in here, I can actually move this all around. And so by doing this, because I had originally drawn my paper space viewport over top of the over into this corner, I can actually edit this now by selecting the corner. We can actually add a vertex. We'll just bring that down. We'll do the same over here. Add a vertex. Oops. Good. Actually want to go to there, and we can bring this over. And for some reason my table disappeared, so I can actually just do a Control V again and get that back in here. So I can also adjust this first by dragging these little pieces as well. And there we go. So now my drawing won't appear behind the table anymore. And then I can actually just remove that table from here. And we're good to go.